Hey everybody, and welcome to the Midweek Bible Study. This one landing on our Facebook page Wednesday evening, the 9th of February, 6 o'clock. This is one of two paths to plug into the Midweek Bible Study. You can do it either here or in person. That one also happens at 6 p.m. on Wednesday. That one, the in-person version, will happen in the sanctuary. We have a group of people who get together and do sort of a discussion kind of format in that way. We read over the scriptures, we talk about it, we throw around some questions and opinions that way. So it's a little bit different format than what you'll find on this particular version, where obviously it's just me talking. But they're two different ways, and we try to keep them on the same track, pretty close to the same scripture at any given time. Though that may not be exact verse for verse match, it's pretty close. In case you're discussing across the two different versions, you'll be on the same page. So either way, you can plug into the Midweek Bible Study, and we have a similar version that you can do on Sunday morning with our worship. We have in-person worship at 9:30 at Sunny Level and 11 o'clock at Duncan. And then also the 11 o'clock service at Duncan is live streamed as it happens on Facebook Live, and then it'll be posted a little later on to YouTube, usually a couple days later. You can find the links to both Facebook and YouTube and all the videos from Sunday morning and Wednesday night for probably the last 2 years or more now. Great place to start is at duncanumc.org. duncanumc.org. Find the links to our social media pages that I just mentioned by scrolling down just a little bit. When you do the scroll, you're going to scroll past our information on COVID procedures right now. And that is sort of important information to know if you're going to come and worship in person. In a nutshell, what we're doing right now, the stage that we're at right now, because of the relatively high numbers of Omicron variant that have gone over the last couple of months in our local area, we've chosen to respond to this by, again, saying, hey, let's encourage masks, especially if you are unvaccinated or if you are going to be close in proximity, closer than about 6 feet, to anybody outside your normal family and friend group. Normal family and friend group, the way we define that is to say whoever you're hanging out with, unmasked, doing things with Monday through Saturday, that's part of your family friend group. If you are going to be around them on Sunday morning and your group is sort of distanced from other groups, that's a little bit less reason to be putting on a mask. But especially if you're going to be close to somebody who is outside that normal circle, we encourage that you put on a mask. It's not requirements or anything right now, but we encourage that. Also, obviously encouraging that if you feel any sort of symptoms, you got fever, anything like that, that you just stay home and worship with us in person until that kind of resolves itself. And all in all, we're trying to just find that balance between being able to meet together, fellowship like we need to do, being around each other, hearing each other's voices, singing together, praying together, worshiping together, all that stuff that is so good for us. Finding a balance between that and keeping all of us as safe as we possibly can. Doing as little or no harm as we can for ourselves and for each other within our congregation. So we've got those two paths, in person and online, to be able to plug into worship. And a lot of people do. There are some people who have only done online worship in the last couple of years because they're just not in a position to come back to in-person worship, or because they may be at a distance where they can't travel to our sanctuary every week, but they participate in the worship anyway. And some of you are participating tonight in the Bible study, as you do on a regular basis. So it's a great way to bring us all together in a lot of different ways. And we've tried to look at this as an opportunity over the last couple of years. You know, not just oh wow, that's a downer that we can't all get in the building anymore, but look at it as an opportunity to say, okay, well, some of us can get together in the building, and then some of us are going to be joined in a different way. And we're blessed to be able to have the technology the equipment to be able to make this happen. And I think it's been a blessing. It's been an opportunity and a great way for everybody to get plugged in, whether you are away because you're not feeling well, or you want to be extra safe, or maybe you're just out of town and you want to watch. That's a great way to be able to participate and be together. So keep those in mind going forward. I always try to hit those markers so that everybody that may see this video will know that there are all these different channels to attend yourself and to invite others to do the same. Some of the other things that we have going on right now, for a few more days, we have a diaper and baby supplies collection that's going on. You can contribute to that. Put your items in the parlor if you're here with us in person, either Wednesday or Sunday. If you're not attending in person, if you'll get in touch with me, if you don't want to come in the building but you'd like to contribute something, say, hey, I got a box of things. I'm going to leave them on the church steps at 11 o'clock tomorrow. And then I'll know to come grab it, or have somebody come grab that and put it with the rest of our supplies. We're doing that for about another week to help out a local family that's in need of some baby items. So anything that has to do with care and maintenance of babies, we'll be glad to receive that and glad to pass that on to that family. We have that. We have Boston Butts. Everybody who is familiar with this congregation knows that twice a year we cook some awesome Boston Butts. They are just like some of the best stuff you will ever eat. And I can say that because I'm not the primary recipe guy. There are other people who do that. I just kind of stand on the edge and fetch things if they need me. But there are some folks who put together an awesome Boston Butt recipe, and it happens twice a year. One of those times is going to be in March. We'll have the date for you. I don't have that right in front of me, but I'll have that for you next week so that you can prepare for that and order yours. And the proceeds from that go to a great cause. It's going to help out our mission team. We have a mission team that is going to Ecuador this summer. I'm going to do some construction there, going to do some teaching and some fellowship with folks that we've worked with before through the organization called CFAT. They are a sort of an umbrella group that we work with and help out with the projects that are going on there in Quito, Ecuador. And so that's going to be going on this summer, and obviously that costs some money. So proceeds from the Boston Butts sale will go to helping our mission team get there and do what they need to do and be a blessing to those folks in Ecuador. So keep those things in mind. And I think that is all the business announcement kind of stuff that I need to get to. We'll be back into the Gospel of Matthew in just a few seconds. Let's have a quick word of prayer first. Gracious God, we thank you for this time to pause and refuel in the middle of the week. To reground ourselves in you, in your purposes, in your direction. We pray for your guidance, that your Spirit would be with us as we look at Scripture, that we would find something to be able to take away from this whenever we may be watching this, whenever we may be participating in this class. Let it be something that we can use going forward in your service. As we serve you, help us to be mindful of those who need you the most and need to see you reflected in us the most. Help us to watch for those opportunities to speak and to act in people's lives and to be a blessing in your name. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, so Matthew, Gospel of Matthew. We are still in chapter 5. We've been kind of camped out there for a little bit because this is really meaty stuff. This is the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, which you may be familiar with. Sermon on the Mount, it contains the Beatitudes, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Lots of other things that serve as sort of a core teaching element, sort of the core ethics of Jesus. And it was immediately preceded in chapter 4. This sermon was immediately preceded in the story by a group of people being called to be Jesus' disciples. And we've been talking about how the idea here is that if they have been called to follow, they've been called to follow their teacher, their rabbi, and learn and copy what he does? Well, chapter 5 starts to tell us what he does. How does this faith, how does this love of God and neighbor look like what does it look like in real life? How does that hit the ground, and how does that operate in day-to-day life? Well, the Sermon on the Mount gives us a lot of questions, a lot of thought starters, a lot of challenges to be able to start answering those questions. How do we put this on the ground every day? It's not terribly easy, but it is a blessing. As the Beatitudes say, blessed is the person who is like this or does that, right? These things that may be a challenge for us end up being a blessing. If we can go against the counter narrative that's around us, the attitudes that tell us to be full of ego and to be full of ourselves and to hold grudges and to be violent and all these things that we gather from the society around us, if we can go against that in this way that Jesus is talking about and construct a different narrative for ourselves that is full of humility and service and love and peace and forgiveness and all these things that we say we believe, well, if we can act in those ways, then we are putting our faith into practice by following Jesus. And where we left off last week was just that, the idea that Jesus has taken these ideas of the law as the Jewish people see it, particular the first 5 books of what we call the Old Testament, taking the law, the rules that are there, the ways that folks like the Pharisees, who were very religious people in Jesus' time, folks like those really sought to follow those rules. Well, Jesus is saying, let's dial that up just a little bit, and it's not just rules, it's not just the way we act, it's not just the way we put it on the ground. It's what comes out of our hearts that prompt those actions. Okay, so we have a balance here. It's heart and its hands. It's attitude and its actions. Okay, and that's what's going on here. Jesus is taking these rules, dialing them up to the idea that it's not good enough that you do or don't do something on the checklist. What is desired, what God desires, is that your heart is also living that. The last thing we looked at last week was the idea of murder and anger and how he compares those two. If you got anger in your heart, well, in a way, you're murdering that person. And there are a lot of ways that can manifest in the real world, that damage can be done. But he's talking about also the idea of your heart and where is your heart? Where's your attitude? It's not enough that you didn't whack that person over the head. It's a need that your heart actually love them, not be angry with them, not hold grudges against them, not want to do them violence. We could walk around with a heart full of anger and violence, and just because we don't act on that is not the whole picture. It's good that we don't act on it physically, but it's also damaging to us if we don't act on it in our heart and in our spirit and carry that with us, okay? Now, this also continues into the things that he is talking about that we're going to take up with tonight, or whenever you happen to be watching this. We're going to take back up here in verse 23. Verse 23, chapter 5 in Matthew's Gospel. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. So that extension of the anger that is so similar to murder continues here with the idea of working out your problems, being ready to reconcile. You notice there at the beginning of verse 23, if you are offering your gift at the altar and remember that there's this friction between you and someone else, well, put your gift down, go take care of that first. And that speaks a lot to me. That says that this is so important. This is so important, this reconciliation with other people around us, that we should even pause our worship. You know, he's talking about a person coming into worship, bringing a gift to the altar, and yet pausing that, saying, okay, I'll do this in a minute. First, I've got to go take care of this relationship problem. I've got to go and reconcile this issue with this person that I'm in friction with. Okay, so that makes it a very important thing. If it's going to push the pause button on your worship, then you got to think this is an important thing. This is an important matter to take care of, and that goes to even when the conflict has escalated to legal action, to litigation that's going on. You got a lawsuit going on. That things have gotten out of control. Somebody's suing somebody else. Somebody is accusing somebody else in court. Well, it says on your way to the court, your job is to try to get this thing worked out, get it reconciled. And there's a practical reason. He goes into this practical reason of, well, you know, you never know when you're going to lose in court. You know, you may get handed over to the officials, and you may lose when you thought you were going to win. And this may mean a lot of trouble for you. You might get thrown into prison. You might be serving this out for a while. You might pay a very high price for going into court. Now, that's sort of the practical reason, but I think it also speaks to the more spiritual reason, this continued idea of reconciling. And like we talked about a few minutes ago, and like we've talked about in weeks past, this goes against the common cultural narrative, doesn't it? Because we often see people who will just throw lawsuits around like they're candy. You know, oh, I don't like what you said, I'm going to sue you. I don't like that you made me angry in this business deal, I'm going to sue you. I don't like that, I'm going to sue you. You know, so people who will just throw lawsuits around at the drop of a hat. Our legal system is constantly just buried in this wave of litigation. And what Jesus is saying here is that a lot of that, if not, well, maybe not all of it, maybe, but maybe not all of it, but a lot of it could be resolved before you even get into the court. You know, we could find resolution, we could find common ground, we could find forgiveness, we could find reconciliation, and take care of that before we get in there. Don't just let that confrontational thing be the way we live life. And it's unfortunate that in our modern society that is often the way that folks live their lives, very confrontationally, you know, very in your face. What are you going to do about it? I will do something to you. You know, it's very confrontational. Everything from online to road rage to berating people in stores to the wave of litigation in the court system. All of that is just confrontation on top of confrontation in somebody's face of, I'm going to assert myself and what are you going to do about it, sort of thing. And Jesus is saying that's not the way we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be the confrontational people. Remember, if you're going to follow me, I called you to follow, so if you're going to follow me, this is the way you're going to conduct your business. And I will not, you know, personal note here, I will not say that it is never appropriate to have to seek legal means. Sometimes that may be appropriate when all paths of reconciliation have been worn out and you just can't get there. Okay, maybe so. Maybe that is a path. But I do believe that the vast majority of confrontations between human beings can be solved before it gets to that nasty confrontational level. And Jesus is showing us a way and an attitude, again, a state of heart, a state of spirit, to avoid a lot of that, to be able to not live in that confrontational world, to live in a world of reconciliation and peace among people, even people who have friction and conflicts, to be able to find common ground and to be able to get past their conflicts. All right. So, verse 27. Here's another thought to action sort of exercise here. Verse 27. You have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery, but I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out, throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away, because it is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. Verse 31, it has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality makes her the victim of adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. All right? So here we're talking about relationships. Fidelity to relationships. I think this speaks to commitment to promises. It speaks to the idea of faithfulness. And that faithfulness starts inside. It starts in the heart. It's not just, have you done something physical? You know, have you, and I will say, even though, I'm just going to back up and say, even though this is framed in a man betrays woman sort of situation, that road goes both ways. Okay, just for clarity's sake, that road goes both ways. But the commitment and the fidelity to the relationship, when one enters a relationship, especially a marital, intimate sort of relationship, there are expectations there, expectations of faithfulness and loyalty, expectations that a person is not going to be betrayed. And that betrayal can happen on a lot of levels. It can happen on a physical level, certainly, but it can also happen on an emotional, spiritual, intellectual sort of level. If infidelity is happening here and in here, then Jesus says, much like the anger to murder comparison, the lust to adultery comparison also has some ties there. Because what starts on the inside has a way of manifesting on the outside. And even if it doesn't manifest on the outside, we've already sort of trod that ground on the inside. We've lost a degree of fidelity and faithfulness to a partner that we pledged ourselves to. We've lost that. We've damaged that if there is unfaithfulness or infidelity going on in here. It's still on the emotional, spiritual level, that is still a betrayal, and he says so here. So again, being aware of what's inside, and the manifested actions that may come from it, but even if they don't, those inside attitudes still matter. In verse 31, when it talks about divorce here, I'm just going to hit this. I'm just going to hit this briefly, because over in Matthew chapter 19, there's some expansion of this. There's a little bit more that Jesus has to say about divorce and questions about it, and so I want to kind of just cover this lightly this time, and then hopefully we can get into it a little bit more once we arrive in chapter 19. I'll give you a couple of hints coming up of what the perspective is, but we'll just do so lightly this time around. All right, he says, first of all, it's been said that anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you, anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality makes her a victim of adultery. And if you marry a divorced woman, you're also committing adultery. Okay? So, in just a quick treatment of this, in the Old Testament, in the law, in the Jewish law, there are provisions for how does one carry out a divorce. You can carry out a divorce, and this is how you do it. These are the steps. These are the reasons, and a certificate of divorce is what is issued in that case. So Jesus makes reference to the law that has come before them, but there are some debates within that law as to what could trigger a divorce. And there were some out of the two major groups of thought in the Jewish belief system, then in the Jewish religion. There are two major camps, major belief areas of what would trigger reasons for divorce. One of them said pretty much anything that the husband says has displeased him, well, that could trigger legitimate divorce. The other camp said, no, you can't just throw away your wife because she has annoyed you in some little way. Okay, so big picture, really quickly here, those are kind of the two camps. Jesus sides with the more strict side, the side that says you can't just disregard and divorce your wife for nothing. Largely in defense, and we'll see some more of this in chapter 19, but it's largely in defense of women of the time. Jesus is always about taking up for the underdog, taking up for those who can't take up for themselves. And in this particular situation, in that time and in that place, a woman didn't have a lot of paths to be able to take care of herself in case of a divorce. If she were divorced for some small, trivial reason, she's put out of the house. She has no money, she has no home, she has no way to earn a living unless she wanted a lot of times to sell herself. There's not a line of support there. A woman is cast basically into a homeless, jobless, sort of helpless kind of situation. And Jesus is saying that it takes more than just an annoyance or being displeased by your wife to cast her into that situation. Okay? Again, it's taken up for those who can't take up for themselves. A woman would be in a terrible position if she were thrown out. And Jesus is saying if the woman is going to be thrust into that sort of situation, you cannot take that lightly. It cannot be trivial. You cannot throw away a person like that. Okay? So we have two things at work here, and again, we'll talk about it more in chapter 19, but two things in work here is protection of that woman because of the cultural situation there. And what we need to read into that in a modern reading being a little different. You know, we're not in a situation where our society is the same as theirs. There are some similarities, maybe, but it's not the same as. And so our reading is going to be it's going to be informed by the idea that it's a different time, different culture. All right, so we need to consider the culture, but we also need to take his words seriously that you don't break up a committed relationship in a trivial way. You've got to treat that seriously. It can't be just I'm tired of you, bye sort of thing. So Jesus is staking out his theology in a guardrail kind of situation for what society could do to a person. All right, so we'll just leave that at that for right now, and we'll get back to it in chapter 19. All right, verse 33. Again, you have heard it said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. All right, so being honest in our dealings. This is what this is addressing. And again, we have to take into consideration a different culture, a different way of doing things at that time. Okay, so he starts out in verse 31, again, referencing the law. You have heard, you have been told before, which means, the Jewish law says this. Okay, the Jewish law says, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. Okay? That means that your word is supposed to mean something. You are to be faithful in what you say to others. It is to be truthful. It is to be able to be trusted. What people hear from you needs to be trusted to be real, to be truthful. Okay? So fairly, understandable, fairly basic sort of thing, thou shalt not lie. We're back to that, right? One of the commandments, and this is kind of an extension on that commandment. But don't lie. All right, what you say should be truthful. Then he goes on to say, but I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven or earth or the city of Jerusalem, etc. And he lists several things, and some of those things that he lists are very interesting because at the time and place, again, we're considering their culture here. A lot of times, people, even very religious people, would say, I swear on the steps of the Capitol building of Jerusalem that this is the case. Okay, that I sold that for $20. Okay, I swear on the steps of the Capitol that I sold that for $20. To try to say, hey, you need to believe me because I have sworn on the steps of the Capitol that I did that. Okay? The things that you swore on, depending on their importance, were meant to lead somebody to believe it even more. Okay, let me give you an example. I swear on the pot of stew in my house, this is the case. Okay, maybe. I swear on the holy place of the temple, this is the case. Oh, wow, that must be true. If you see what I'm saying? The more important the thing that you swore on, the more the message was, you need to believe me. And people being people would often abuse this. It could be something that is completely untrue. I did not break my neighbor's wagon, and I swear on the steps of the Capitol that I did not break my neighbor's wagon. But they did, right? So they have abused that idea of I'm going to invoke something really important to try to sway you to believe what I'm saying. They've abused that. All right, so Jesus kind of says here, rather than ramping up what you're swearing by, this thing, I swear by this thing, or swear by that thing, or whatever, and make it more and more and more important the more you want them to believe you. Whether you're telling the truth or whether you're just abusing that, either way, don't play that game, right? Don't play the game that swearing on something important should make you believe me. Live your life in such a way that when you say yes, they know you mean it. When you say no, they know you mean it. And that's the way it is. Okay, so you're taking the rule of the law to say, I am going to be a person of my word. In your actions, that's one thing. In your heart, that's another. Another way of looking at this would be to say, I was crossing my fingers when I said that. Right? I swear by this that that's true, but I was crossing my fingers. Or I swear by this and that was kind of true, but it's not the whole truth, right? There's that thing we do in court, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? So sometimes people can have what some folks call a mental reservation. I will tell you, yes, I sold that for $20. Mentally reserving the fact that I charged him a $17 user fee as well, so it ended up costing him $37. Get it? So I told the truth by saying, "Oh, I sold it for $20," but I just didn't tell you about that fee that I tacked onto it that actually made it cost him $37. Right? So there are lots of ways of massaging the truth and technically keeping an oath and still not be living by the truth from your heart. And I hope all this tangle makes sense, but it's kind of the way things are when people start, like I said, massaging the truth. It gets confusing and it gets hard to sort out. But the bottom line is, it is possible to technically say truth without having the whole truth get out, and without your heart actually being truthful into your actions. Okay? So, again, Jesus says, live your life in such a way. Make your words so trustworthy that you don't have to try to massage the truth, and you don't have to try to convince somebody by swearing on something that you're telling them the truth. Make your words so trustworthy that when you say yes, they know it. When you say no, they know it. And there's no need to embellish any further, to swear on anything, to massage anything, to duck or dodge, or there's no other question than, oh, well, you said yes, you always tell the truth, so I believe that. You said no, oh, okay, you always tell the truth, I believe you that. I have seen it in your life. I have never seen an indication where you were trying to mislead anybody or massage the truth or convince anybody of something that wasn't true. I've never seen that, so I'm going to believe you. Jesus says, live in that way. Just so that it's plain old yes and no, and we're all good, right? Everybody will be okay with that. All right, so we're going to pause right there because we get into another fairly complex sort of part in verse 38 next time around. We're going to talk about an eye for an eye. I heard somebody actually say that was their favorite Bible verse one time, but which struck me as kind of odd. But anyway, we're going to get into that. What Jesus has to say about eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, etc. That'll begin in verse 38. The next time we meet, which will be for the first time, 6 o'clock on Wednesday evening, the 16th of February. Okay, that's when the next video will land on Facebook. Whenever you happen to be watching, it's when it gets there, 6 o'clock on the 16th. But hope to join you again then. Hope you'll be along for that. If you haven't seen any of the videos leading up to this, maybe you can kind of fill in some of the gaps by going to our YouTube channel or scrolling through the Facebook page, either way. So join me again after the 16th. And in the meantime, hope you'll join in with worship one way or another. In person, 9:30 or 11 o'clock, Sunny Level or Duncan. Or if you'd rather go the online path, join in with the online worship at 11 o'clock live. from Duncan or later on from the YouTube page. In any case, hope to see you there and hope to see you here next time we meet for a midweek study again. Until then, hope you will be blessed and that you will be a blessing. See you next time.